अभी तो लाइव है। 5 मिनट्स तक वेट करते हैं।
हम्म
4।
Do you all send the link to people who have registered? Suppose if they are not attending or something, or is it some portal where they know they have registered, but समझो like online में mostly people don't come, so then they can go and see ऐसे कुछ है?
मैम फिर तो वो हमारा जो 360 पे है, हम उसको ऐप का वीडियो एज अ वीडियो पोस्ट कर देते हैं।
Okay,
तो तो अगर बाई चांस नहीं जाते या फिर लोग यहाँ पे ज्वाइन नहीं कर सकते जिन्होंने रजिस्टर भी किया है, तो वो कम से कम वहाँ देख लेते हैं। तो
okay.
हाँ, उस वे में है। मैम आज आप मतलब जैसे लास्ट टाइम आपने केस बताए थे, इस पर हम इस बार कैसे जाएंगे?
Same way, I will speak about the cases, applicable to short cases,
ओके।
and then through that only, because without cases you cannot explain. Na? It becomes very impractical. When you have the cases, then students know how they can utilize it. Otherwise, it is like theory. तो सारे books में present है. You can read through it, right? So
यस।
that makes no sense unless and until you have a case to. So what I've done is even the book review I've added in the case only, so
ओके।
that it looks practical. Otherwise, it becomes very boring.
हम्म।
They should know. The thing is, we have a rich materia medica. We have rich philosophy material, but we don't know which book to use when, how, and at what level. Maybe somebody who's at a very senior level doesn't need a certain book. Somebody at a very junior level does not need a particular book. Necessary.
मैम हाउ डू यू से टू स्टडी मटीरिया मेडिका? हाउ विल यू सजेस्ट दैट वी शुड रीड मटीरिया या फिर होम्योपैथी?
See, everything now, whether it's materia medica, whether it is any study material in homeopathy, you will have to first, as per your cases. And I think the best teacher is when you're stuck with cases. That's how I studied and it helped me. Suppose I have a case of, say, hypothyroid. I have given my best selected remedy in my capacity. Okay. The problem, the best selected remedy is also very subjective, right? तुम वही देखोगे जितना नैरो तुम्हारा व्यू पॉइंट नॉलेज है। तुम्हारे डिक्शनरी में अगर 30 रेमेडीज है तो तुम 30 रेमेडी पे ही आपको लगेगा कि यू हैव सिलेक्टेड द बेस्ट, बट मे बी इट्स नॉट द बेस्ट. So then you go and you read and understand where you are stuck, what remedy you must have missed, what part of the case you must have missed, and then that helps.
ओके। शुड वी स्टार्ट मैम?
Yes, we should. कितने बता रहे हैं?
अभी तो मैम आप मैम देख सकते हैं।
हम्म
मैम पीपल विल कीप ऑन ज्वाइनिंग। वैसे तो अभी लास्ट मेल गया है सबको, अभी कुछ टाइम पहले ही, 15 मिनट्स पहले रिमाइंडर। सो
Okay. So people, so it's 5 5.
हाँ।
So we start, I believe, at least introduction and everything, so that when people join, we can continue with the lecture. Now, फिर वो lecture time में से बहुत cut हो जाता है.
So let's start with the webinar of today. Good evening to all the viewers. I hope everyone is healthy and excited for today. I am Dr. Aditi. I'll be the moderator for today. The topic for today's discussion by Dr. Sadaf ma'am is homeopathic case taking part 2. Ma'am has already taken first webinar on this only, part 1. This is part 2. So my request is if any query arises please feel free to ask ma'am, because हम लोग बड़ों से नहीं पूछेंगे, चाहे छोटी छोटी भी हैं हमारे डाउट्स तो वो क्लियर कभी नहीं होंगे. So that you can drop in the chat box and we'll be discussing those in the end. Now let me introduce to the speaker of the day, Dr. Sadaf ma'am. Ma'am has completed a graduation in homeopathy in 2009, followed by which she has upgraded her skills working with internationally and nationally renowned homeopathic doctors. She has done her PG in clinical research and psychology. She has been training homeopathic doctors since 2011 and has been invited to various organizations for sharing her knowledge. She has also been working in the field of psychology and has been promoting healing and lifestyle workshops. More, she has been awarded the Healer of the Young Generation in 2015 by NavBharat Times. Welcome, ma'am. Now I hand over the session to you.
Hello, thank you. Thank you so much, Aditi.
Thank you, ma'am. You can, ma'am, start.
Yes.
You can
So,
share the slide.
yeah, I'll share the slide. So, very good evening, everyone. And to those who are new, welcome. And those who are have attended the previous session, welcome back to the second part of a case taking. Okay. So, I'll not, without wasting the time, I'll come to the topic that we have been discussing. Okay, so we all know that case taking or the case receiving is the most important skill one needs to have when you are doing homeopathy. Okay, so you may have a very limited source of materia medica in your brains, which is okay. You might be exposed to very little number of repertories, that's still okay. You always have softwares, you always have books to go back to, and you can read and reread whenever you want. Okay, but when it comes to the art of case taking, if that art is not well known, there is always a problem. Okay, because if you do not open up the treasure box, you will not know what is the treasure, and then you will not treat it. Okay, so last time, and case taking is a wide topic. Okay, it's a topic that we or it's actually a mix of art and science, and it took us years to not even still we have not mastered, still we are student of it. Okay, so we are still learning the key skills of case taking. So in my last session, I spoke about how different kind of observation is important. You can always go back to the YouTube links on the same. Okay, and once you are well aware about what are the basic key skills of case taking, that is number one is observation. The next very important is the art of interrogation. Okay, so your work doesn't end when your patient just enters your clinic, when you have just examined the patient. Your work doesn't end there. That is a job of an allopath. Okay, an allopathic case taking is very simple. You just have to take 1 2 3 4 data. 1 + 1 is equal to 2. This is the diagnosis. Take paracetamol, take this, take that. The work is done. But for a homeopath, the art of interrogation becomes very, very important. Okay, so this book, Pierre Smith book, okay, the book of art of interrogation, okay, is the very basic book on case taking. It is highly recommended for all beginners. Okay, I remember when we were in college, and when we used to sit in the hospitals OPDs and the peripheral OPDs, we will sit with a format that the college will give. Okay, and sometimes we will just fill in the blanks. सर्दी कितनी है, प्यास कितना लगता है, सर्दी कितनी लगती है, गर्मी कितनी लगती है, धूप अच्छी लगती है, and it was just like a plain tick box that you were doing, which was a very mechanical process for me, personally for me, so we knew we had to ask location, concomitant, modality, sensation, but sometimes patient wouldn't give that. And for me, that fitting into the box or fitting into the format was something which was a very difficult process. Okay, that was the time where we picked up this book in a college library. It was a 25-page book. Okay, 25 page book on art of interrogation. Now bjn, what bjn publication has done is they have combined different small booklets of Pierce Smith, and they have made it into one whole book. Okay, so it's very interesting to have all his data or all his knowledge in one book which they have. Okay, but in this specific book of Pierre Smith, Art of Interrogation, he has summarized case taking as to do's and don'ts of case taking. How do you question your patient? What do you question your patient? Okay, and that becomes very important. Now, one interesting line where he has quoted a lot of authors. He has quoted Kent, he has quoted a lot of authors, but there's one line where he has summarized the whole lecture of Dr. Herring. Okay, and he summarized it into 4 words. Okay, so he writes that art of observation is one thing, but if you have to trace the picture of disease, there is only one rule to it. Okay, so people often in lectures, I believe just few days back I had a lecture with the fellowship batch of other song, and one of the student asked, ma'am, can you please give me a protocol that we need to follow for unconscious patient or patients who are in hospital? So I said there is only one rule. Okay, the rule of homeopathy is individualization. There are different routes for getting through this part of individualization. Okay, what is that? Number one is you have to observe, you have to be keen observer. Hahnemann has stressed on this, I mean, in many parts of organ on sixth edition, I say, become an unprejudiced observer. He's talking about knowledge of disease. He's talking about the knowledge of medicines. Okay, but we just read it like a summon, how you read your Bible or your Gita or your Quran without meaning, knowing what it is exactly telling you, and how do you use it in your day-to-day life. Similarly, when he says the key rule to tracing picture is unprejudiced observer or whatever knowledge is, Pierce Herring is breaking it down. He says you need to understand while you're observing, not only your eyes but your ears. You should listen. You're not just hearing, you should listen to what patient is saying. You need to write every observation that you're making. Then you need to know the art of questioning. And at the end, the most important, last but not the least, you have to coordinate everything. What you're observing, what you're listening, what you're questioning, what answer you're receiving, everything should be coordinated. Otherwise, this becomes a very dead end work. Like will have data after data, but none of the data is useful for you. Okay, clear everyone? Very quickly, yes or no? Okay, just okay, fine, I'll just continue. If there is any doubt, you all can stop me. Aditi, you can stop me. Okay, next, very important is you need to understand. Okay, like I said, the case taking that we follow in homeopathy is not like that of allopathy. Why? Because you need to understand why you're doing, the ikigai of your case taking. Allopaths will inquire to collect objective data. They are hunting for the end product, that is the resultant disease or diagnostic perspective. It is a mere collection of data. Okay, whereas in a homeopathic case taking, is an investigation not only into objective symptoms, but also we need to establish the connection between the morbid affection and the subject and the person who's affected. Okay, how has a particular disease, how has the particular diagnosis developed in a given person? You have to explore all the possible details of evolution, the onset, the duration, the progress, the past history, the family history, what are the other illnesses that are happening. So, evolution of such disease in an individual makes it different from, and how is my diabetes different from somebody else's diabetes? How's my blood pressure different from somebody else's blood pressure? Now, when you understand this, you will know whether you are on a right track or there is something more to it. Okay, how exact, now once you know the objective of your data, the question is how exactly do you ask question. So whenever I do guided case taking with a lot of my students, they are in a kind of a paralysis, and they'll sit next to us and they'll ask, what do we do, how do we proceed, how do we take a first step into the inquiry, and how do we know that what we are asking is taking us to the remedy or the data is completely irrelevant? That's always the question. Okay, what we observe is there are certain pointers, okay, which is again given very nicely in this book, which is extremely useful for the beginners, especially those who have not practiced homeopathy for long and now want to get back to homeopathic practice, or for those who are just beginning the homeopathic practice. The key of case taking is you, as a doctor, are talking less. Okay, your questioning is minimum. The key rule, जितना आप कम बात करोगे ना, उतना आपको ज्यादा अच्छा डेटा मिलेगा. Okay, most necessary are those questions that discovers the general remedy corresponding to the patient. Okay, questions will be such that can, your questioning will only be that much is your knowledge bank. इसके लिए हैनेमैन ने बोला था कि नॉलेज ऑफ डिजीज, नॉलेज ऑफ मेडिसिन, नॉलेज ऑफ द रेमेडी इज इम्पॉर्टेंट. अगर आपको पता ही नहीं है कि एक्स वाई जेड रेमेडी एग्जिस्ट करती है और उसके एबीसी सिम्टम है, तो यू विल नॉट इवन थिंक ऑफ आस्किंग दैट लेवल ऑफ क्वेश्चन. So every time when you are doing your case, you also need to, abhi, just before we could start a webinar, Aditi asked me, okay, ma'am, how, what do you think a homeopath should study? What should the pattern be of homeopathy, studying homeopathy? So the first pattern is every time you pick up an Allen's keyword, every time you pick up Kent's Materia Medica, Boric Materia Medica, every symptoms you convert into patient's language. Just don't read blah, 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 over. No, read one line, reflect, think how your patient is going to proceed with this type of a questioning, and that's how even your question over a period of time will get evolved. Now, because your knowledge bank, you know that there is some kind of this symptom existing in my materia medica or in my repertory, you know where you have to go. But if you're not aware of, then there's a problem. But again, the next problem is there are certain things we do that can uh, obstruct your case taking. Number one is the language that we speak to our patient. Sometimes we try to speak, and by language I not only mean the words that you're using, but also the kind of interaction you're doing with them. One is the language, that is the words, and one is your body language. One is your approach towards a patient. There is a patient who needs a strict doctor and you're being very lenient, and there is somebody who's very egoistic and you're being like a very meek, very timid doctor. Problem ho jata hai. You will never have your case taking improvised in such condition. Okay, you have to have a certain attitude while you are taking a case. Just give me one sec. I have one urgent call coming. Just give me 1 minute. I'll just pick up this call. Sorry. So yeah, so number one is the attitude of the physician, the seriousness as well as the benevolence you show to your patient while you are talking to them should stimulate confidence. So one thing is when a surgeon cuts a person into two pieces, and has an open organ in their hand. Okay, and one thing is when somebody is opening up and being vulnerable in front of you. Okay, so once and for all, when you're dealing with organs it's easy, but when you are dealing with somebody's emotions, when you're dealing with somebody's story, you need more to it. Okay, so you have to be very benevolent while you are taking the case. Words like "you're doing great," "you got this," "I have got you," "I can understand how you're feeling right now." These are very simple words, but these are the words that will assure your patients to open up. Okay, I still remember this thing that you have to remind yourself every time you're taking the case is you tell your patient, "You speak, I listen. This is a safe space for you to talk, and nobody is going to obstruct, because every day in their life there are 10 people giving them 10 things. So this time you need to give them an open space to talk. Okay, because unless they talk, you don't have a history, and if you don't have a history, you have no similima. Okay, so you have to inculcate a language, an attitude, a body language that will appeal to your patient. Okay, next, what are the mistakes that we do in our case taking? Okay, we get too excited while we are taking a case. Okay, especially you're taking a case and somewhere you are hinted with a remedy. So the first thing will be, "Do you think you do this? Do you think you do that?" The direct questioning where you expect your patient to answer yes or no is a very wrong kind of a case taking. Never ask a question that is suggestive of an answer. "Oh, so you must be enjoying meat, huh?" It's a problematic question. Avoid all the question where a patient is obliged to choose between two alternatives, this or that. Okay, direct questioning like, "You must be irritable. Are you very thirsty? Do you cry?" Especially if you think a patient is pulsatilla, "You must be crying a lot, right?" If then patient, everybody cries. The patient will oblige to you and say, "Yes, I do cry." Or if he wants to show he's a macho, he'll say, "No, no, no, I don't cry." Nobody's going to say, "Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I'm irritable." Okay, so these kind of questioning can hamper your case taking. So avoid such type of questioning. You will not get a data that you will be able to use it in your practice. Okay. The next most important is, again, like I said, don't ask a bias based question. Oh, you stand cold very well. You take too many coverings. You prefer to be consoled by your family members. How about me? Do you enjoy? These are suggestive questions. Do not use them in your practice. Okay. Next, very important questions where patient have to choose. Do you dream about something very scary or something very happy? You like to sit or stand? You prefer hot or cold weather? No. These are not the question that you will be choosing in your practice. Okay. So what do I ask? And how do I ask? You all must be thinking. Okay. First of all, you need to understand what are the bases of interrogation. What are the bases of your question selection? What are you trying to interrogate? What are you trying to achieve in a case? How much information have you collected from your patient? Once you have an idea about this, you automatically have a formed question base, and the question base that will take you to a remedy. Otherwise you will be just moving around like you are moving around in a maze. You don't know where you're going, round and round and round. End up giving sulfur to every second patient, end up giving certain remedy to every group of patient. If you see your repertory, when your selection of symptoms are very few, you will see the same remedies. When your selection of rubrics repertorial symptoms are very weak, you will see same remedies coming up. And then, my dear friends, that is a problem. That cases will never heal. The best of my successful cases are the cases that I know for sure I have taken well. I do not make a compromise in my case taking. You may charge your patient heavily for your time, that's fine. But do not do dishonesty with your time, with your patient. Because if you are not taking a good case, you are not helping this patient. You're wasting your time, you're wasting your patient's time. I do not get this idea where people work with, I'm sure the protocols do work. I'm sure that is good, that may be needed, but those cases cannot be justified homeopathically. That could be God's grace or something that the medicine worked. But a medicine to be working and to create an appropriate cure, it has to be homeopathically selected. It has to follow the law of individualization, law of minimum, law of single dose. Law, you, it has to follow certain criterias that homeopathic masters have led. It has to cover the miasmatic background, it has to cover the physical background, it has to cover the mental background, it has to cover the diathesis. So how do you ask? What is the basis of your questioning to the patient? Number one is most important, which most of the authors like Kent, Bonninghausen, Farter, Boger Synoptic all have written into, is the most important part in the case taking or in the totality of a person is not the part, it is not the pathology, it is not the diagnosis, it is the general state of the patient. So your question now becomes very wide. So a patient comes to you with coughing. You do not ask, does your cough increase when you're talking or when you're eating or when you're drinking or when you're singing? No. Tell me throughout the day what all are the activities that you do can provoke your cough. Or throughout the day, what have you seen happens in your day that triggers your cough? Which part of the day do you feel is difficult for you? Which part of the climate or the weather which atmospheric conditions do you think affects your cough, or affects whatever affects you? Patient comes with a migraine. What happens throughout the day that your migraine or your headache is aggravated or it is caused? You leave it and open. Now you see, in this question there is a broad range. Patient can pick up anything. You tell them it's okay if you find certain things to be illogical. I'm here to listen everything. You gain the confidence of the patient and you say, I'm ready to listen to all your nonsense that you feel is a nonsense can actually make sense to me. I remember once I had a cancer patient, and this cancer patient had a very terrible cough. Okay, and I was treating this patient, and meanwhile, the relative, the husband of the patient, came in, and he said, "Doctor, if you don't mind, will you also take my history? So, for sometimes I'm also having certain problem, and I've tried my level best for diagnosis, but I'm not able to come to a diagnosis. So, allopaths have just given me some medicines which have not helped." I said, fine, tell me what's happening. It's a very strange thing. You know, every time my wife coughs, every time she has a problem, every time she is in a pain, exactly the part she is in pain, I get pain. Exactly the time she coughs, I cough. And I have no, I've done my chest x-ray, HRCT, everything. It's absolutely normal. So what is this? You know, and that time when I was hearing this patient, I came across a very interesting rubric which is present in Kent, and there is only one remedy, I guess, in that. Okay, and that name is the that sorry, there are four remedies in that. Okay, that rubric that is mentioned in Kent cough chapter is sympathetic cough, and you have four remedies: Lachesis, Naja, Cardus, and Drosera. So you see, homeopathy is so beautiful. You just have to have the ear to listen. Once I had a patient, and I was giving him different cough remedies one after another. I was not coming to a conclusion. And when he was sitting in my clinic, I observed one phenomenon. The cough will come up very paroxysmal, but whenever the person will cough, he will do stop, will be better, and then stop. And it was a pattern that throughout the case I heard. And that pattern of cough was every time he will cough, he will get only three coughs in succession. And the remedy you have in Kent's Materia Medica for this is carboveg, cuprum, phosphorus, and stannum. Isn't that wonderful? That
Yes, ma'am.
is that is the beauty of homeopathic prescription. You do not have to go through a lot of files. You just have to listen to your patient. And when you listen to the patient, you automatically come to the remedy. So there is the whole, but you have to know where to search it. You need to understand one is the case taking, and then how I go about with this. मॉर्निंग में कैसे होता है उसको कॉफ, उठने से होता है, डे ब्रेक पे होता है, कपड़े चेंज करते वक्त. देयर इज दिस रेमेडी ड्यूरिंग कोविड टाइम. आई हैड वन 80-year-old female. She was diagnosed with COVID, and her lung of a score was 8 or 9. Okay, so they were like, you have to be very careful. She's 80, she's diabetic, ये हो जाएगा वो हो जाएगा. But family said, no, we don't want to take her anywhere. We want to take care of her at home. So they called me saying, doctor, can you tell me any remedy that will help Maji? So I said, what happened? Like, see, all day she's fine. वैसे तो the diagnosis came very like We all had fever. We all had fever, so we checked, and hers also, ours came positive, hers came positive. So I said, fine, what happened then? So he says, this mother daughter-in-law says, morning when she gets up, okay, the time when she's brushing her teeth, she will cough a lot. Rest of the day she's okay, but that morning time, while she's before the breakfast, she gets up, she goes for a morning rituals. That is the time where the cough is more. In Ken's repertory, if you see, you have only two remedies: Coccus cacti, Staphylococcus aureus. So that is the beauty of homeopathic case taking. You have to listen to something that the patient is not telling you. And that, my dear friend, becomes the key to your case taking. Once in a given case taking, I was taking desires and aversion. And the patient said, doctor, I used to love eating so and so dish. But ever since I have not, he gave an incident. I said, talk about that incident. And from that incident came out the real state of the patient and the remedy of the patient. So sometimes you're asking for desire and aversion, and patient will take you to altogether different tangent. You're asking something, you have to observe. What do you like? I like milk. Okay, do you like salt? Yes, salt. Sugar? Sugar. No, my dear friends, that's not desire and aversion. Doctor, I love sour food. You see the excitement on the patient, of the face of the patient when he's talking about, I love this. Don't take the name of this. That's the true desire and aversion. In Pure Smith, this book that I was talking about, if you read, he has given a very clear cut indication. These are all there in our books. The symptom that the patient is giving it to you like this, without you pushing, without you asking, do you like Sahar? You must be liking ice cream, huh? Because you want to give him phosphorus. I had one case of severe cough. Patient was coughing, 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 coughing. But while the patient was coughing, he would love cold food. He's like, my cough becomes better when I drink cold. That makes me better. Now that's interesting. That's something that you will have to see. What is it that is making in the cold? You have cold aggravation is common. Everybody will come and tell you that cold aggravation is a problem. But when somebody says cold amelioration, it's something you have to think about. You have causticum, you have cuprum, you have coccus cacti again, you have bromium. So how is this cough starting? In fact, we need to educate our patients too. Doctor, खांसी हो रही है, दवा दोगे? I say no, I cannot. I cannot treat you. When you say खांसी हो रही है, दवा दो. That's not how we treat. What happens in the cough? While coughing, is the patient going forward? Is the patient moving backward? Is he wanting to crunch himself into two and sit? That is what is important. Is he feeling good in the warm room? Is he feeling good in the cold room? What is it that's making her better or him better? That, my dear friends, are an important question that you will have to ask. That will talk about the general state of the patient. I'll give you an example of an acute throat infection case. Okay, so this female patient came to me with acute pharyngitis. He says this case was just few days back. It was in the month of October, just before Diwali and after the Sera, around this time. The season is known in Maharashtra to be a season where it's a little hotter. Okay, where the days are hot and nights are a little colder. So she was out the whole day, and she kept on off and on because it was hot. Whenever she will sit in the car or when she was traveling, every time she will put up in AC. Okay. When she came back home, night she felt a little feverish, and by next day there was severe fever and chills. She was wanting to be all alone. She doesn't want it to be disturbed. The mouth was extremely dry, and throughout she was sitting very quietly. Mother said that while she was doing all these things, she was attending her lectures, and I told her, don't go to school today, take rest. But she was like, no, I have to. It's very important. Whatever is going on in college is important for me. So I have to be attentive to it. So despite with this fever, chill, and this cough, and she wanted to be all alone, she chose to go to the college, attend lectures. There was constant dryness of mouth, and she was not relieved by drinking. When I asked her in the clinic, what do you want to do? She said, Doctor, right now, if you ask me, I just want to go home and lie down. I'm so tired. If I move also little, it's not what I can bear. I said, fine. She had high temperature. So I took this following rubrics in our repertorization. And you see the remedy that comes up is bryonia. And we know bryonia, business minded, very industrious. Dryness. Dryness runs through and through bryonia. Okay. Post bryonia 200 in plusing potency was given to this patient. After, so in acutes, I do a very repeated follow up, 48 hours, 72 hours, depending upon how I see. So in 3 days, she had no paroxysmal fever, no dryness, stool, appetite, energy level, all better. But there was one symptom she complained of, which even after repeating the doses never went off. She said that, I'm feeling like a mucus is stuck in my throat, and I have to do I'm constantly doing this, and this doesn't go off very easily. And once I do and I force it out, I'll be okay. But moment I attempt to drink, when I'm eating the food, it's not a problem. खाना खाती हूँ तब problem नहीं है. But when I'm attempting to drink my water, or if I'm attempting to just swallow my saliva, there is this plug like ball like thing comes into my throat, and I then that becomes very disturbing, and I'll be like I keep doing this. Interesting. Normally when people have throat irritation, they drink water and they feel better. But she says the moment I drink water, this plug like thing is coming up. So we see what has to be done with this. So I took this following rubric, and now you have lecasis coming up. You see the bryonia picture is gone. The dryness is gone. The home desire, rest desire, disturb aversion to state is gone. Now a new state has evolved. Gave her lecasis 200 one dose. Immediately after 48 hours, she said the plug-like sensation in the throat is not present. It's completely gone. Little bit nose discharges are there, which followed by SL. At this moment, I just gave her SL, and after SL, what's happening? After SL, nothing else. The Coryza just asked her to do. Now you know there is nasal discharges, watery discharges, which is absolutely normal. You do not disturb the action of remedy, and you let it go, and this completely passed away. Just today morning, I did her follow up. It was okay. Now, what do we learn from this case? Number one, the causative factor. How is this acute condition affecting the general state of the person? You see, in this particular case, what we got was very important is how was the fever affecting him generally or her generally. She wanted to rest. She didn't say that my hypothalamus wants to rest or my hand wants to rest. She said, I want to rest. I don't want to be disturbed. So, this is a general state of the person, and that's where the person has been impacted. So that becomes our peculiar symptoms. You know, you have observed, you see, you have heard the patient, you have not just heard, but you have listened to the patient, and now your analysis becomes easier. Okay, so what is it? Number one, what caused it? Moving in a hot weather. She was continuously moving from hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold. Problem. We know Bryonia is a remedy when days are hot and nights are cold. When there is constant change in temperature from hot to cold, Bryonia patients are affected. That was the causation. Now how did this causation affect this person generally? In general, there was dryness. In general, there was a desire to rest, desire for not to be disturbed, and yet the patient was working. So we know the remedy. It's as simple as that. Okay, Aditi, do we have time or should I stop?
Ma'am, we have 15 minutes, around 15 minutes.
Okay, so I'll do one more case example.
Yes, ma'am, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
one more case of a fever. One of my assistant. So I go to my native place where it's a small village where I see a lot of patients. And it was month of Ramzan when one of my assistant who helps me out with a little bit work around the clinic, he called me up and he says, my father has high fever, and all of a sudden his temperature is 103-degree. And now again, this was in the time of COVID. Okay, so he said, my other family members have also been tested positive for COVID, so we are not sure about my dad, so maybe even he's having that. I said, forget that COVID, tell me, how did this fever start? Okay, my question was how. When you ask how, you get the cause, you get the onset, you get the duration, you get the progress. So you see, I didn't ask, did your father get fever after he went out in the sun, or was he exposed to cold? No. Simple. Fever की शुरुआत कैसे हुई? How did the fever start? He said, Dr. Malmini, it was all of a sudden. He's a rickshaw driver, so he has to go out. He goes out, and yesterday night, when he came home, he was very tired. We thought it's because of Ramzan and he's fasting, and also he is having. So we asked him to just go and sleep, and he slept. And midnight, he woke up. Okay, he woke up before. So in Ramzan, you have this sari, and then we have food. But he woke up even before sari time, and he suddenly ate a lot of food. And we were all laughing, all the kids in the house, we were laughing कि पप्पा को देखो कितनी भूख लग गई, अभी खा लिया और रोजा रख लिए. So that was very surprising that he ate so much. We were making fun, and like he was telling in morning he's not feeling well. Sorry, in the evening when he came, he was saying he's tired, he's not feeling well. But see now how much food he's eating. But moment he finished eating, 1 or 2 hours later, he finished eating. Then it was sari time. We finished sari, we prayed, and no sooner he finished praying, he started shivering very badly. The shiver was so much that we had to put a lot of cloth on his, that much he was shivering. And I immediately checked his temperature. His temperature was very high, and since then it has been high only, and we don't know what happened. I said, describe more what happens during this fever. Like, as soon as the fever starts, he has a severe headache, and he becomes very weak, and he's sleepy, he's very dull. बट अगर हमने उनको क्रोसिन, जैसे कल रात में क्रोसिन वोसिन दे दिया उनको, तो स्वेटिंग हो गया, तो उसके बाद ही वाज ओके एंड ही वाज ईटिंग. बट मोमेंट द शिवरिंग स्टार्ट, ही बिकम्स वेरी वीक, एंड व्हेन ही गोस टू लाई डाउन, वी अंडरस्टैंड दैट शायद इनको फीवर आ रहा है. Okay, otherwise he'll be active. If there is no fever, he'll be active, he'll be okay. But moment the fever chills start, he will be like this. So are you getting what's happening over here? The patient or the patient's relative is describing about what changes happen at a general level, not at a physical level. Appetite is very, very general to the patient. It describes the whole being of the patient. Okay, so he asked, I took this rubric, hunger canine. Interestingly, fever, heat, hunger canine, that's the rubric you have. Concomitant, Borninghausen writes fever concomitant hunger. So China, I gave him China 200. Okay, China has this tendency to feel very hungry before the paroxysm comes up, and there is a periodicity of symptoms. So what we observe, that there is chills, there is different stages of fever. There is chills, there is heat, there is sweat, and before chills you have excessive hunger. During chills, the weakness begins. The body is all fatigued. China is a known remedy for fatigue, weakness, debility, periodicity. Okay, so I gave him China 200, 4 pills, follow up after 48 hours. Fever paroxysm reduced. He's still having fever, but temperature is not going very high. No chills or sweat. Recorded temperature every hour, not more than 100. Appetite good. Energy level okay. He's moving here and there. Lingering headache is there, but not completely. SL. Okay, stop China. Continued with SL. Further follow up after 48 hours, no fever, no headache, no chills, left for his routine work, and is able to keep up to his fasting routine also. He started fasting also because it was month of Ramzan. He didn't want to skip his fast also. So he continued with it. SL for a week, then nothing. So this, my dear friends, is the beauty of an accurate homeopathic case taking. If we can achieve a perfect case taking, we will definitely get a good remedy, and a good remedy, a well selected remedy, will never fail you. Thank you. Any questions? We are open for it now. If
Thank you,
anybody
ma'am.
wants to personally message, uh, for those who are going to view afterwards the session, they can message me their queries. I'll try my
जो
level best to answer.
मैम जो हम फिजिकल जनरल्स में वो पूछते हैं डिजायर्स एंड अवर्जन, वो डिजायर इज लाइक वो 2+ या 3+ में होना चाहिए, बट हम उसको पूछ लेते हैं कि आप खाने में नमक तेज खाते हो या दूसरों घर में दूसरों के मुकाबले देते हो, तो ये वाली चीज ठीक है कि मतलब पूछना कि आप मतलब जैसे होता है ना कि वो अपने खाने में ज्यादा तेज लेते हैं या हमेशा ही उनको नमकीन खाना पसंद रहता है,
So when
तो
it comes to desire and aversion, okay, we are very tempted to ask, जैसे आपने केस ले लिया, ठीक है, एंड
हम्म,
देन यू वांट टू कंफर्म कि सपोज आपको मन में आ गया कि ये फॉस्फोरस का केस है, तो you want to ask confirmatory questions. Okay, so you'll ask, do you like salt? And patient will say yes or no, right? That, my dear friend, is not a right question.
हाँ मैम, वो तो गलत क्वेश्चन है कि
हाँ,
हाँ,
एंड देन यू सेड दूसरों के मुताबिक नहीं, मत पूछो, तुमको कंफर्म करना है ना वो फॉस्फोरस है, गिव हिम अ ब्रॉड रेंज, टेल मी इन ऑल द फ्लेवर्स व्हिच इज योर फेवरेट फ्लेवर. इफ
ओके,
इफ देयर एक दस्तरखान, लाइक आई टेल माय पेशेंट, अगर एक दस्तरखान लगी है, उस पे हर तरह का खाना अवेलेबल है, यू नो हर तीखा, खट्टा, मीठा, बिटर, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा, लंबा चौड़ा लिस्ट होता है ना खाने का, हर
हम्म,
फ्लेवर जो वर्ल्ड में एग्जिस्ट करता है वो एग्जिस्ट है उस टेबल पे, आप कौन सा उठाओगे? हम्म? बहुत बार
हम्म,
ऐसा होता है कि देविन से, हाँ आई थिंक मीठा उठाऊंगा, आई थिंक तीखा उठाऊंगा, यू नोट इट डाउन, बट देन दैट इज नॉट कैरेक्टरिस्टिक.
राइट.
Characteristic is a symptom that comes very voluntarily. आई कैन नॉट इमेजिन माई फूड विदाउट सॉल्ट. ओके, मेरे को है ना एक बाजू में एक अलग से कटोरा लेके बैठना पड़ता है. उसका अगर वो सेंसिटिविटी है तो वो बोलेगा.
अब मैम किसी को जैसे कुछ होते हैं जिनको लाइक रहता है कि उनको डिजायर है मीठा खाने की, जैसे हम
हाँ,
घर में भी देखते हैं, तो वो वाला तो माना जाएगा ना अगर हम खुद
बट
ऑब्जर्व कर रहे हैं.
now again you'll have to see, suppose if it's a Gujarati who says I like sweet, everybody in
तो
Gujarat likes it. But if he says, doctor, I can't imagine my life without sweet, तो आप कुछ भी डाइट, स्पेशली व्हेन दे टॉक अबाउट, आप है ना कोई भी पत्थर पालने बोलो, बट मीठा मत बंद करा ना डॉक्टर. मैं दवा बंद कर दूंगा बट मीठा नहीं बंद कर दूंगा. Now that becomes more than 3 plus. Are you getting? Sometimes people very lenient say हाँ मीठा पसंद है, तीखा पसंद है, थोड़ा ये भी पसंद है. तो
हाँ.
वो तुम्हारे eliminating symptom, that will never be your eliminating symptom, that will never be your the symptom.
Hmm.
Then even if the remedy, suppose you're thinking, say you want to give the patient lycopodium, okay, and patient gives you very weakly मेरे को ये, and you see check it's not covering the thermal state, okay, and the thermal state that the patient gave you is not very evident के मुझे गर्मी ना डॉक्टर बिल्कुल बर्दाश्त नहीं होती है, मेरे को गर्मी में रखो मैं पागल हो जाऊंगा.
हाँ,
So you
हाँ.
know he is not hot, sorry he is hot, राइट. बट अगर से नहीं ठीक है वैसे तो गर्मी पसंद नहीं है, पंखा ऑन कर लेता हूँ, ठंडी भी ठीक ही लगती है, ऐसे कुछ नहीं है. सो दीज आर वेरी वीक सिम्टम्स. तो इसके वजह से यू विल नॉट स्टॉप योर सेल्फ फ्रॉम नॉट गिविंग लाइकोपोडियम और गिविंग लाइकोपोडियम.
Hmm.
Are you getting? Because this symptom in this person is not the characteristic. Are you getting? For a symptom to be characteristic, it has to come out evidently. Like I had one patient, the moment I asked her, tell me what's happening, she started sobbing.
Hmm.
So now this becomes very important for me. भाई मैंने कुछ बोला भी नहीं, सिर्फ पूछा क्या हो रहा है. So weeps while narrating the complaints. Then that becomes क्या बोलो डॉक्टर. भाई मैंने जोक थोड़ी ना मारा जो ये हंस रही है.
Hmm.
Now that becomes an important question.
Okay.
What's your pace? What's your pace? What's your pace बोलने से नहीं होता. जब पेशेंट तुम्हारे
हाँ.
सामने बैठा है वो कैसे बात कर रहा है, how was his nature of appointment. जल्दी ले लो जल्दी ले लो, अरे डॉक्टर बस बहुत लेट हो रहा है, डॉक्टर बस बहुत लेट हो रहा है, राइट. That's a problem. That says that he's hurried. Then you will take the rubric hurried. Hurried in talking, hurried in working, hurried in eating. Like I had a patient, okay, he used to say डॉक्टर मेरा ना हर चीज एकदम ऐसे सुबह में पॉटी से लेके रात के सोने तक मेरा हर चीज उतने ही टाइम में है, एंड
Hmm.
उतने ही टाइम में वो खत्म होना चाहिए, वरना मैं वो मतलब खाने को बैठा ना 2 मिनट में खाना खत्म हो जाना चाहिए, 2 मिनट का मैं 2.30 सेकेंड भी होने नहीं देता. सो नाउ दैट टॉक्स अबाउट द pace of this patient, that talks about the whole attitude of the patient. So that becomes important. Then you will take, when will you, हाँ साफ सफाई कैसी, हाँ मुझे साफ सफाई, कोई थोड़ी ना बोलेगा मुझे गंदा रहना अच्छा लगता है, वो तो तुम उनके घर पे जाके देखोगे तब तुमको पता चलेगा साफ है कि गंदा है, right. But the way he's presenting his file in front of you, the way he's dressed in front of you, and plus somewhere or the other patient very evidently gives the need for perfection. Like we had one cancer patient, it was somebody asked children cases. So this child was suffering from cancer and we had gone to do home visit to this patient during our residency with Dr. Sarkar and Dr. Sujit. So when we went over there to the patient's house, it was very astonishing. This child had arranged the cars in a particular manner. All red cars together, blue cars together, all Hot Wheels car together, and he had labeled those cars. I mean, 5-year-old child.
Hmm.
5 साल का बच्चा कैसा होता है, उसके सामान कैसे होते हैं. But look at this
सब
child,
बिगड़े.
everything organized. Now this is a perfectionist level that you cannot ignore. This fastidiousness you cannot ignore. Now you cannot think of a remedy which is not fastidious. If you leave fastidious out of this child and prescribe, that will be a crime. समझ रहे हो. सो वो जनरल स्टेट जो रहता है ना वो बहुत एविडेंटली दिख के आना चाहिए, उन पे फोर्स्ड अपॉन नहीं होना चाहिए. देन द रेमेडी विल डू मैजिक. फिर वो एडल्ट केस हो या चाइल्ड केस हो. Pediatric cases you're more dependent upon the parents, but sometimes parents can give you absolutely bullshit history. यू नो, यार मेरा पेशेंट, मेरा बेटा ना बहुत चिड़चिड़ा है, बहुत चिड़चिड़ा है. But when you actually see the dynamics, when the mother is sitting in the consult room with you, you find the mother more irritating than the child. The child is much more peaceful, but mother cannot take smallest cry of the baby. That is how you understand. Just because mother say my child is irritable, no. Few days back, I did a pediatric case where this child was laughing, was absolutely okay. Mother says, "ये दिन भर रोते रहता है, दिन भर." अरे, what do you expect from a toddler? When he's hungry, he's going to cry. When he's going to pee, he's going to cry. When he's going to pass potty, when he's bored, he's going to cry, which is okay in a certain age group. So you have to then also be objective in pediatric cases. Pediatric cases, no doubt, parents are the main source of your information, but you confirm it with your presence, with your, you always have to remember this three things. You coordinate what you observe, what you listen, and what information you are getting through your case taking. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions?
Ma'am, what is the means importance of taking mental symptoms in acute cases? Are they necessary? Are they
Yes.
not?
If it is necessary for the patient, yes, it is. Okay.
Okay.
Sometimes even something as simple as cough, sneezing can start because of an emotional trigger. So if there is something, again, the rule is the same for everything. कुछ अगर evidently present है background में, तो उसको treat करो. Like I had one patient few years back. The child was shivering in fever. The माँ ने उसको blanket डाल के ऐसे tightly पकड़ के clinic पे लेकर आया था, holding. Like I have to hold him like this only. I said, how did the fever start? So yesterday he went to school and when he came back he had fever. School में क्या हुआ?
Hmm.
So he said, the child very quietly said, teacher ने डांटा. Then the mother
Reprimanded.
inquired, teacher ने डांटा बोले तो क्या हुआ? Then he said there was something happened, and this child was punished.
Okay.
When he came back, he was in fever. So I gave him gelsemium 1 m, one dose, and fever within for say 4 to 5 hours came down, and the child was normal.
Okay.
You see, that is the strength of mental symptoms. So you cannot ignore them. You will have to consider. फिर वो बच्चा हो या बूढ़ा हो,
Okay, ma'am.
बट वो एविडेंटली प्रेजेंट होना चाहिए. एविडेंटली प्रेजेंट नहीं है तो उसका मतलब भी नहीं है लेके,
Hmm.
फिर वो वेस्ट ऑफ टाइम हो जाता है.
Ma'am, also question, in cases of obstetric history of the mother, are only the mental symptoms have to be given importance?
No, even the physical symptoms. Whatever changes in the state of mother at physical general level and mental general level, both has to be considered. Like I had a case where this female never craved for very spicy. She in during her pregnancy suddenly she developed this craving for pani puri. She's like, never I had that much craving, but during my pregnancy I developed this. And then she had back to back infection,
Okay.
allergic responses to certain drugs, actually not infection but allergic responses. So we gave this child medorinum, which helped the patient. So yes, every, but if it should be very evidently present. Sometimes patient ने से नहीं कुछ नहीं था, सब नॉर्मल था, कुछ भी नहीं हुआ, तो फिर वो इसको तुम ये नहीं कर सकते, वो सिम्टम्स को तुम ये नहीं कर सकते.
Hmm. One more question. Which rubric was taken for cancer baby who was keeping everything nicely? I think वो जो perfectionist वाला केस बता रहे थे,
Hmm.
उसमें which rubric did you take?
Rest cannot if things are in proper order. Fastidiousness, that was the rubric that we took.
Okay. Okay, ma'am.
And
should
then
be.
of course there was other part of the case. This was a this mere example. The history was used largely taken. Okay.
Hmm.
Any other questions?
I
So
don't think.
if I have to just summarize, number one key skill is observation in case taking. The next key skill is listening. Okay, you listen to things that are evidently said by the patient, and some things which are said and they're not actually meant, or comes out of nowhere. You have asked a question and you receive a b answer, and that things become very important. Keep your questions very broad ended. Okay, there's much more to case taking, and it's huge. For those who are beginning and those who still have issues with case taking or don't have confidence to take a case, okay, the very simplest book that is present is Pierre Smith's book on art of interrogation. Please do read, and it will help you to take a good case taking. बेसिक केस टेकिंग अच्छा होगा तो फिर मास्टर लेवल के केसेस तुम बाद में लेना. पहले बेसिक केस टेकिंग में मास्टर कर लो, बेसिक स्किल्स में मास्टर कर लो, एंड कीप टेकिंग केस. किसी का भी
Hmm.
रात चलते किसी का भी लो तुम केस. ये जब तक तुम केस, समटाइम्स पीपल से अरे सर इतना मैम इतना केस टेकिंग में टाइम डालेंगे तो पैसे कमाएंगे. चार्ज करो. Charge your patient. Create a culture where you charge for your consultation. Homeopathic medicines are cheap, but you can always charge for your consultation. But do justice to your case. इनमें 4 पेशेंट देखो, बट वो 4 पेशेंट को अच्छे से देखो, उसका पूरा अच्छा निचोड़ लो और फिर देखो. आई एम श्योर if you do these, automatically you'll see the difference in your history. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for putting your effort into मतलब हमें समझाने के लिए, like from expression wise to your voice expression, and book पढ़ने के लिए, then उसको लाने के लिए, that how you utilize that book in
You
your case
have that
study.
book, right, Aditi?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
When
ma'am.
you have this book, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We have
So if
it.
you can share the link with the participants and give them some
Ma'am,
provisions that they can order, how they can order, it will be best for them to use this book because it's amazing. Like बहुत basic case taking उसमें है, but for beginners and those who have never practiced a classical homeopathy, those who are transiting from GP to homeopathy, those who have taken a long break in their practice and coming back, this book is most recommended.
ma'am, I've shared the link, but for the particular book, sir, ma'am, when we'll posting the video on Homebay 360, I'll make sure that the ISBN and the link for the book is posted right below the video.
Sure.
Okay, ma'am, we'll be continuing with your case taking series. Aage, when you
Yes.
will have time and you'll be back.
Yes.
Uh,
Mostly in month of end of November we will do, because this
yes,
month
ma'am.
is a bit busy for me now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you so much for making time with us and Homebay 360 team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, audience. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Take care, ma'am. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Do I end this? Stop sharing.